If you've ever been bitten by the adventure bug, then you're well aware that one of the best ways to have an adventure is on a motorcycle. But what is it that makes a good adventure motorcycle? Now, in order to cover these massive distances, you're going to need a motorcycle that's extremely comfortable, has a decent amount of power, is on the lighter side, and is also off-road capable. Well, enter the Ducati Multistrada 1200 Enduro. Aside from being lightweight, this is what an apex modern-day adventure motorcycle looks like. Its sheer size will get your jaw dropping. Let's face it, it's an intimidating motorcycle to look at, but it will get you across continents, and we're here to see how well it fulfills that purpose. When you first approach the motorcycle, that front facade is sure to grab your attention. Its predatory front beak and that set of dual headlights with the high fly screen are a signature of the Multistrada series, although the Enduro version gets an even bigger front beak. But look beyond that and the proportions start to take on a more gargantuan nature. The 30-litre bulbous fuel tank sits authoritatively in the center of the motorcycle, and this is what really stands out on the Enduro. Its curves blend so seamlessly with the edges, and finally has a nice deep swoop into the seat. The rest of the seat, the pillion seat and the rear end is shared with the other Multistrada models. If anyone could make a purpose-built adventure motorcycle beautiful, it had to be the Italians. But what is it that sets the Enduro apart from the other Multistradas? Well, to begin with, it gets these spoke trims with a 19-inch front tire. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the spokes sit on the outside of the rim. This is what allows it to have tubeless tires. And the suspension on the Enduro gets 30 mm of more travel than the regular Multistrada. And there's a new pivot plate, which allows this Enduro to have a double-sided swing arm. Now, if you've ridden the other Multistrada models, the TFT instrument cluster is a rather familiar place. It is extremely well laid out, customizable, easy to read and light adaptive. The Multistrada's party trick is its rider modes. This can be accessed via the toggle buttons on the left switchgear, which are reasonably easy to use. Once you get the hang of navigating through the menu, it's simply amazing how customizable the entire motorcycle is just from the cockpit. With this top-of-the-line Multistrada model, everything from your suspension to your engine character can be controlled electronically. The 4 basic rider modes, Sport, Touring, Urban and Enduro, can be switched on the go. But while at a standstill, you can go into each mode and customize the character and limitations even further. Aside from the 3 levels of power output, which is 160 horsepower on high in Sport and Touring mode and 100 horsepower on low in Urban and Enduro, you have 8 levels of traction control, wheelie control and ABS. There's also 4 settings available on Ducati's electronic skyhook suspension and 24 levels of preload. So though it's a massive option list, it's quite easy to filter through to make the bike ideal for the riding conditions and your level of skill. So as you can see, getting on the bike can be a bit of a daunting task. I'm about 5 feet 10 inches and my feet are just about reaching the ground. This is definitely a bike for taller riders. But let's get this bike on the main stand and I can tell you a little bit more about the ergonomics. Now if you look at the profile of the bike, there's quite a dip from the tank to the seat. And this seat is extremely comfortable. The handlebars are nice and wide and you get this manually adjustable screen. And once you get it all the way up, the wind protection is just brilliant. All you need to do is just slightly tuck in and you could ride like this all day and there's no fatigue from wind blast. The Enduro gets Ducati's 1200cc Testastretta DVT engine, which stands for Desmodromic Valve Timing. Now what this does is regulate the valve timing based on the rider mode you're in and throttle input. This is managed via hydraulically operated camshaft phasers. What all of this does is ensure the engine pulls smoothly from 2000 RPM, so you don't have to sift through the gears too much. Although in typically Ducati fashion, You really have to keep an eye out for the false neutrals between 4th, 5th and 6th gears. Otherwise, the throttle response is sharp and power feels good as the revs climb, with the bike pulling noticeably harder at around 6000 rpm. The crowning glory of the Multistrada is how well it changes its character in the different riding modes. Once you actually get moving, all premonitions of it being a ridiculously large motorcycle start to fade away. It is extremely manageable and rider friendly. But the big problem here, however, is the amount of heat generated in slow moving traffic. The larger tank restricts the flow of air around the engine and ends up sending searing levels of heat towards your left thigh. In touring mode, the suspension feels soft and absorbs bumps at all speeds beautifully. However, in the corners, it does tend to get a bit wallowy over bumps and hampers precision. In sport mode, the Enduro changes from a more relaxed nature to a very crisp one. Although the suspension is still a bit soft, the bike encourages you to push it harder. It tips into and tackles corners with poise and precision, not something you'd expect from such a large motorcycle. But it's the Enduro mode that really sets the Enduro apart. It just makes the motorcycle so much fun on the dirt. Although there's still a lot of physical muscling required here, with the ABS set at level 1, the front ABS remains active while the rear switch is off and allows you to lock up, square off and tighten turns. If you know what you're doing, this motorcycle could do trails all day, although it is way too heavy for the more technical off-road terrain. So all in all, we're quite impressed with how capable this motorcycle really is, despite its gargantuan proportions. But this is not a motorcycle for just anybody, and it's certainly not a city motorcycle. Its large size and overheating issues will make it painful to maneuver through tight traffic situations. Even if this motorcycle falls within your budget and you're large enough to manage its size, you also need the kind of skills to really appreciate what this motorcycle is capable of. But if you've managed to tick off all these boxes, we wish you all the best on all the adventures you have coming.